All right, guys. So, since Trump has won, a lot of discussion has been being had about what to expect. Like, there's going to be a lot of that over the next couple weeks, no doubt, and even in the next couple months. A lot of people are worried because Trump has made a lot of promises about what he is going to do once he takes power. You know, a really good way to just summarize all of it is his promise that he'll be a dictator on day one, right? So, as you can imagine, there's a lot of discussions right now about what we can do to actually try to stop things like Project 2025 and Agenda 47 from going through and destroying the American people. I actually got recommended this video by a YouTuber named Zaid Tabani that looks pretty good. It's only a day old and already has 34,000 views. That's what I like to see. Good shit, good shit. It's called How to Block Project 2025 and Other Things You Can Do. Zaid talks. So let's go ahead and check out the video. It's a little bit long, so we're probably not going to watch all of it, so I do recommend you guys go check out the rest of it for yourselves, but we're going to take a good, decent chunk of a look into it and see what we can learn about here, see if we can get a little bit of a silver lining, a little bit of hope going on in the chat, see if we can get a little bit of raised spirits going on. Let's take a look. What can we do to stop Project 2025?
All right, this video is going to be broken up into 4 parts. I'm going to give you the bad news, then I'm going to give you the good news, then I'm going to give you some context on everything, and then I'm going to tell you what you can directly do, okay? Cool. Okay, before we get into that, though, I have to establish a few things just so you know that I'm not huffing copium or whatever, all right? Some pundits are going to downplay whatever I say. I'm not. I've been looking this up for the last 2 days. Number one, probably one of the biggest fears people have right now outside of specific civil rights being eroded or violated in the wake of this election is the loss of political parties or voting or the right to vote or any sort of engagement in democracy similar to 1930s Germany. Also, they fear the suspension of the Constitution like Donald Trump has said in prior statements. And I've been looking this up since 10 a.m. 2 days ago, round the clock, and even with everything that is in Project 2025 and all of the guardrails it pushes, Trump does not have the votes or the state legislatures in control to suspend the Constitution and disable voting in mass. It is legally and structurally impossible for him to take away your right to vote or to grant himself unlimited terms and permanently defang the Democratic Party.
It is literally impossible? I mean, there may be no legal avenues for it, but man, Donald Trump doesn't just, this is the thing you've got to understand. You can never just assume this. I understand there are no real legal avenues for him to do this, but we've got the red, quinfecta right now. I don't even know what you would call it. Red Congress, red Senate, red House, red Supreme Court, red executive branch. Everything is hard red. Everything is hard red and MAGA. His entire cabinet will be loyalists appointed to him after an entire term of whittling down the non-loyalists in his previous cabinet. There's a reason Mike Pence isn't around anymore, for example. He's dropped a ton of his generals, so he's going to bring in just very sycophantic generals. He might have enough military backing to coup the government in 4 years. He explains that, Zan? Just watch? Okay, fair. I'm not, dunking on him or anything. I'm just saying, I would not jump to say that it can't happen, because I would have called you crazy if you said COVID would happen in 2017. If you told me in 2017 COVID's going to happen, millions of Americans, or over 1 million Americans, will die due to a badly handled pandemic by Trump that could have easily been prevented, then I would have called you crazy. Easily, I would have called you crazy. So I am very hesitant to say that Donald Trump is not going to go as far as he has said he will go. I'm willing to believe him when he promises that he's as bad as he says he is.
In order to do all of that, he would need 38 compliant state legislatures, or about 3/4 of the state legislatures in this country. Republicans control 28. He is 10 shy. The others are Democratic or divided with slim majorities/minorities. And just to clear up another fear, anybody who's seen other tweets from the Midas accounts, from the guy who posts all those clips from Midas, saying that a lot of Trump officials want to federalize elections, which is a fascist thing to do, there are significant, really serious structural roadblocks for Trump being able to do that, including some of his hand-picked Supreme Court. I will get to that in a second. Now, another fear that we have to take care of ahead of time is in terms of the military...
I will say, I typically don't find myself watching much Midas Touch. They have this very, maybe I'm one to talk about it, but I feel like I'm very like real with you guys, if that makes sense, you know? I feel like if you watch me for like a month, you can see me consistently holding the same values and positions, but constantly like growing my knowledge base to improve at my rhetoric and my persuasive argumentation. But like when I look at something like Midas Touch, sorry, it it feels like it's just a progressive content mill. You know what I mean? It just seems like it's nothing but a content mill. And that's a little like it just doesn't vibe well with me, if that makes sense. I don't hate them. I'm not like saying they're awful, but yeah. It's just not my thing, you know? It's from lawyers to lawyers and people interested in the law. Maybe it's just law stuff, but it just I don't know. It's not my cup of tea. Not really for me.
Carrying out extrajudicial enemy within type attacks, being used as police in the streets with law enforcement overall in the country. First off, military control is decentralized, okay? Like, it's built that way. So if Trump replaces...
Oh yeah, I don't have a problem with Midas's Touch. It's just not my cup of tea. I understand if people in chat are like, I don't like Midas Touch. I don't typically watch their stuff for segments because it's more commentary focused, and that's not good for like news. But then again, I'm commentary focused, right? Like a commentary YouTuber wouldn't want to watch my coverage of a situation to talk about it because it would mostly be me talking about it, not me just explaining the situation. And people watch Midas's Touch or me for the commentary, not necessarily just the raw news.
Places the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staffs and all the levers of the DoD with loyalists like Project 2025 wants him to do. The literal structure of the military and the UCMJ is built specifically to have levers to stop a president from using it on the citizenry. Now, after I wrote this paragraph that I'm reading right now, CNN released an article saying that the
I've always been of the opinion that like U.S. soldiers would refuse to turn their guns on civilians, but then again, like cops shoot civilians in the U.S. all the time. But then again, the military has a lot more, like the military's legitimately got more oversight and rules and regulations and like strict adherence expectations for their soldiers than it feels like a lot of police departments do for their cops. So I once again, I wonder, and I've always thought, like, I don't think most U.S. soldiers would ever even consider accepting the order to turn firearms on like American citizens.
Pentagon was already having conversations about what would happen now that Trump has been elected for a second term, which is, by the way, what the military would do in order to set up roadblocks for him doing this. And those roadblocks will probably rely on the multiple levers that are built in as nonpartisan and not subject to his Schedule F executive order. Because again, some of those military personnel are not civilian employees. Now, most career military personnel have protections against politically motivated dismissals, and that can go challenged pretty effectively even within the Project 2025 framework. And in case you go, hey, what about the National Guard? What if he federalizes it? What about that instance during the George Floyd protest? Listen, even within federalization of the National Guard is under the control of states. Now, the DC National Guard is a little bit different, and there are loopholes Trump used in 2020 to be able to authorize things like Lafayette Square. But those had enormous ramifications for the National Guard itself, both political and personal. And what I'm trying to get to is that, listen, there will absolutely 100% be a midterm election in 2026 that has swingy states in a world with heavy anti-incumbency bias that may love the economy.
This is such a good point. I don't think Trump could even illegally destroy our democracy by 2026. And by then, man, people are going to be upset with the current incumbent. Shit, like the anti-incumbent bias is crazy. So the Dems will probably perform really well in the midterms, and that could be enough to kind of weigh things a little bit and give some actual, delays to anything Trump tries to do, or maybe even some genuine guardrails. The thing about guardrails is though, like, Trump just breaks them, right? So it's actually got to be like a genuine sort of army of politicians constantly trying to fight to stop and slow Trump's attempts to erode our democracy. What if he blames the economy on good old Joe? I'm sure he'll try to, but like, good luck convincing the American people. I genuinely don't think it'll work. Good luck convincing the American people that policies from a previous administration could affect the economy in a current one, because they won't believe it. it's not just a thing that affects the Republicans to their benefit. If like Trump destroys the economy while he's president, he's taking the blame. No matter how much he tries to throw it back on the previous administration, he's going to take the blame. The vibes are going to turn sour while he's holding the hot potato.
And gas prices, but is really fucking scared about abortion and a non-defanged Democratic Party. Now, Trump can build issues within the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, and other...
That's true. The Dems who still hold office are some of the most progressive Dems. From the Squad, Buttigieg, like, we're talking, like, a lot of the Dems still left holding, like, office are quite progressive. That actually lends some credence to the idea that the Dems need to actually move more left, significantly so, to like a more progressive, like populist left, since the people who were populist left had a much higher success rate at keeping their seats or gaining seats. It was like mostly just the corporate Dems and the more establishment Dems that got nuked this election on the local level.
Significantly undemocratic norms to make voting harder or suppression easier. But there has been historically ways to subvert and overcome those effectively, but I will go over that in the context section. Trust me, I got you. But listen, overall, getting to effective single-party puppet government rule in the United States would be incredibly challenging due to decentralized elections and government. If Republicans controlled 38 legislatures and the majority of governorships and had no split houses in key swing states, and they controlled all of the lower courts, maybe, but they don't. And Biden actually accelerated the judges he was confirming and installing to about 215. If he appoints 32 more before the terms end, he matches Trump's judiciary record, save for the Supreme Court. Do you remember when Obama couldn't fulfill all?
That is true. Those judges have a lot of power too, believe it or not. Like there have been some pretty cool stories I've covered of judges like vetoing red states' governors' laws that they put forward. Like judges have a crazy amount of power, dude. Especially state Supreme Court judges. Holy crap.
All of those judgeships, and Trump just got to do all of that. Biden's almost matched it. The 2022 non-red wave, I'm not fucking with you, saved us. So there is a chance and blocks to a lot of that stuff. Okay? All right. Bad news first. Give me a second to explain all of this because it's going to be heavy, and then I will give you some good news, all right? And it's good news that's not just public pressure, okay? Like, I promise you, I got you some other stuff. Number one, immigration. Trump is very keen, promising that no price tag exists on his mass deportation plans to round up and deport 23 million illegal immigrants. There are not 23 million illegal immigrants. There are more like 11. Him and his cronies have floated the idea of deporting citizens and stripping them of their citizenship, even birthright citizenship, and vowed to mobilize ICE immediately. This also includes deportation camps, which is fascistic and horrific. Number two, abortion. Project 2025 has vowed a backdoor abortion ban, subverting Congress to ban abortion nationally using the Comstock Act. That's an old fucking law that would be used to prosecute and make illegal to distribute materials used to perform abortions or abortion medication across the country. Trump has promised to open libel laws, jail his political opponents, prosecute media critics, and revoke licenses for opposition networks. He has floated once again the idea of dismantling Section 230. If you don't know what Section 230 is,
this is a big part of why it's going to be important that we really push for like left-wing alt media, like ridiculously hard. We have to push for it, and that's because Trump is promising to revoke the media licenses of like CNN, MSNBC, every like mainstream left-leaning, quote unquote, mainstream media source could genuinely lose their media license and get taken off the air by Trump. If Trump, like whether or not Trump has the ability to crack down on progressive voices online, he may, but it's probably going to be harder than taking things off the airwaves on TV. But yeah, we're legitimately entering a scary era. What's really worrying is if Republicans try to pass some law that like being pro-trans publicly is like inciting a crime or something, right? Like that would be genuinely scary for anybody doing, like you would basically just not be allowed to do pro-trans content as a YouTuber in America. Like you could just make a pro-trans video and get a knock at your door and be charged with a crime. That's a scary idea. Is like how much they can bend because like there are certain exceptions for the First Amendment and what you're allowed to say, like say for inciting crime. If the Republicans decide to make being trans enough of a crime, they might be able to argue that advocating for trans rights is a crime, akin to calling for terrorism or something, right? That's a scary thought.
It is the provision that does not hold media companies responsible for content that they upload to the internet on YouTube and everything like that. Repealing Section 230, right, would dramatically change the entire nature of the internet and introduce a lot of other roadblocks for what content you could actually upload to platforms. Number 4, the Schedule F executive order.
That's scary.
The Schedule F thing, which makes nonpartisan bureaucrats and civil servants at-will employees, creates many of the possibilities that you are hearing about right now. This executive order would let Donald Trump install loyalists in all these key positions in the government in order to bypass any administrative checks or roadblocks within the executive that exists to ensure Trump has an entire cadre of people that will do what he wants. This would also significantly reduce regulatory oversight in many instances and possible selective enforcement on laws that do exist for the other party, as well as the deregulation of safety standards and environmental standards. Thanks, RFK. And of course, number 5, I think, tariffs, which,
mind you, RFK, a guy who has a literal dead brain worm parasite that ate part of his brain that is in his head still, because you can't remove that kind of thing without open brain surgery. So there's a dead brain parasite that ate part of his brain sitting in some like little void inside of his head. He is now going to be in charge of our food, our medicine, our health standards, our vaccines. Is there not like an x-ray? I thought he had posted an image. I guess he just talked about it. But here's like a scan of what it looks like. People have posted images of what it looks like when someone gets a brain worm, exactly the kind RFK has. And here's what it looks like. Basically, the worm starts eating a little pocket inside the brain, and then it lives through its life and dies, which the one in his head did. And so now he's just got this like void of gray matter in his head with a dead parasitic worm inside the pocket. And now the guy's in charge of our medicine and government. The worms! Like, yeah, we're so cooked, dude. That's bad. I would recommend you start growing a garden ASAP.
By all means, would increase the price of many different things towards the consumer and possibly tank the economy. All right, there's some more bad news. I promise I'm almost done. In terms of foreign policy, Gaza is completely fucked now, right? Netanyahu will colonize parts of Gaza. Nobody to stop him. Ukraine will be forced to capitulate somewhat to Russia by the order of both Elon and Trump, and we will either leave NATO or have a smaller standing in the world stage for the next 4 years. We're 100% leaving the Paris Climate Agreement again. And some of these are inevitable, right?
Coal's
there will be pressure on vote.
If it weren't for Trump getting elected by 2030, coal as an industry would be completely gone, which would eliminate 80% of our country's yearly carbon footprint. Donald Trump has promised to axe that on day one, so that's never even going to get to like go into effect. So, yeah, we lost the war against climate change. Yay!
Voting in the FEC, there will be attacks on immigration and abortion and female reproductive health and press freedoms. And in the Supreme Court, Trump will get 2 to 3 picks. So it is very bad. It's bad, okay? I just want to get that out there so you don't think that I'm huffing copium again, all right? I talked to somebody yesterday, and they thought I was. I have researched this. I know how bad it is. I'm not minimizing it. I understand. It is devastating and dangerous, okay? Good news. Number 1, immigration. Donald Trump, once again, does not have the votes, even if he nuked the fucking filibuster, to actually strip birthright citizenship or even gained citizenship because it is a constitutional amendment. In order to do that, you need to—
On top of that, you got to remember, and this might be one of our few saving graces, there are some never MAGA Republicans that got office. So some of the red on the House and Senate is actually kind of purple. You know, like OG, like Romney-style Republican. So there are some silver lining there. There might be some resistance Republicans that hold out against Trump.
2/3 of each chamber and 3/4, like I said, you remember 38 state legislatures for ratification power in order to make that happen. They don't have anywhere near that shit. 47-53 Senate is not that, and the House is going to be mad divided. It's close, guys. And before you go, well, they'll just ignore them. That's not how any of this works, right? It's not up to—
And not that all that confident they have the spine for that, though. Same St. Roan, I will say one person who definitely does is Romney. Like, Romney's been, like, calling out MAGA and going against MAGA as a Republican, representing, like, anti-MAGA Republicans for 8 years now. I don't think he's going to bend the knee. Like, he has had every opportunity to, like, bend the knee and try and, like, dick ride him, but he is definitely a voice within like the respected GOP space that will never— I don't think I see him ever bending the knee to Trump. I don't see that. He leaves office in January. It doesn't matter, though. He's a voice for the GOP. He's like Obama in that way, right?
To Congress or ICE to ignore that.
Like Obama
all
for
of
the
the
DNC.
power in the United States is decentralized. That process takes a long fucking time. In between them trying to take on this massive operation that is going to be incredibly difficult and is already being questioned and walked back in the press, there will be dozens of bad news articles, economic consequences, and damage to Trump's allies and billionaire friends, who I'm just going to remind you are required for him to maintain power everywhere. That would significantly mitigate some of their implementation of this. Now, what about wrongful deportation? What if they just take people wrongfully and deport them? So listen, I looked this up, and it's not only in the Trump administration. We'll talk about other administrations later, but when that has happened, where there's been a trifecta, even other 6-3 Supreme Court loyalist majorities have ruled in favor of those deported. And looking at the records of Trump Supreme Court
That's
majorities,
good.
they would probably do the same. Let's say you don't believe any of that. Fine. There are multiple legal rights groups, including the ACLU, that are far more prepared and are signaling that in the press to issue legal challenges, and Trump does not have the vacancies in the judiciary.
It does look like, regardless of whether or not Trump tries to go and break every single guardrail he can, he's going to get caught up in a lot of, like, mud. You know? Even with a majority, he's going to get caught up in a lot of mud, and at the very least, his plans are going to be slowed substantially, maybe even enough to get to the midterms, in which case a lot of those options he might have had before could be completely closed by then. We might not be completely cooked, chat. It might be all right. Might be all right.
That he had when Obama left office and McConnell just let him pack that motherfucker. Don't wave that off. Again, that isn't nothing. Biden has caught up in terms of judicial appointments. He's 30 away. Issuing legal challenges like that on that system could cause severe gridlock on Trump's plans. And also, that no price tag is a lofty fucking goal, my guy. Do people not remember the wall? Right? Do you know that there was a version of that campaign
remembers
for
the
the
wall?
wall since 2000?
Who remembers? Well, for one, yeah, the wall was originally a Bush thing, but it was a border fence. And then the wall was a steel rebar and concrete, tent. I think at one point it was 50 feet tall. Basically it got to be literally the wall from Game of Thrones, because Trump would keep on saying the wall just got 10 feet taller. And what it ended up being is a very easy to bypass, literally gets blown down by dust storms that happen in the desert. Rusty, ugly looking slat fence. It's pretty tall at least, and it's at least made of metal. And the slat design was actually kind of smart, because otherwise the wall would blow over because there's so much wind out there. But even with the slat design, it still blows over. Large parts of it do. And the slat design means that people can pass things through it. And so a lot of drugs still get through the country's border, even if it's through the most just over the ridiculous, just okay here and just tanning it through the bars type deal. Yeah. So yeah, basically the Trump wall completely failed. It was a massive L.
2005, right? He stole that fucking idea. And I also think people underestimate when they talk about the adults no longer being in the room, just how many loyalists Trump had in his first administration. Okay? A lot of people bent the knee, and the wall still didn't fucking happen because it cost so much. The amount of money that will cost to other sectors of society that would feel it, including conservative sectors that are currently in power. The reason the people who are elected love Trump is because they benefit from him. Again, that doesn't include any of the legal challenges that I mentioned, which would slow it the fuck down and make it cost more money. And say what you will about Donald Trump, about him being a strongman, about him being fascistic, which he is. He is also incredibly operationally inefficient. I'm not super
That's fair.
operationally inefficient. Even in his campaign, right? His ground game operation was as terrible as Harris's campaign was ineffective. And again, that does not mean his immigration policy will not be.
And that's true. You got to remember, Trump did not win off his campaigning. It was a vibes-based vote. It was just the incumbent disadvantage this time around because the Dems got caught holding the hot potato.
Bad and horrific and incredibly inhumane. But there are tools and agencies and organizations not related to Trump's government, which he can install himself, that can substantially slow it down or fight it. Very quickly, before we move on, I do want to talk a little bit about data privacy. Over the past year, it's become increasingly apparent.
All right. I will cut the video off at the sponsor, and you guys can go check it out yourself, because this is a great video so far. We're only 12 minutes in. It's 44 minutes long. This is a fantastic video. Very informative. You know what? Just so you guys know how much this channel is worth checking out, I'm dropping a subscriberino. Check this out. Look at this. I'm dropping a fucking subscriberino. I'm gonna ring the bell icon, and I already liked the video because I'm just cool like that. I already dropped the like because I'm just built different, you know. I'm just built so different, and I already hit the like button when I clicked on the video because I knew it was good. That's how based I am. And you know what? I'm gonna comment too. I'm gonna comment down below. Great video. Just to help boost it. Just to help boost it in the algorithm. Just to show you guys what you should do for my channel. If you enjoyed this video, of course, liked the commentary, liked that we do have some hopes of things not completely falling apart with Dictator Trump day one, right? There is still some hope. We're not completely fucked by every part of our government being red right now. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. It's like casting a blue ballot to YouTube, telling them you want them to push my content in the algorithm and get it in front of new and old eyes alike. It really does help a lot, as does commenting down below. It actually boosts the effect of the like, so like and comment if you can. Subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications if you want to see more stuff from me, because if you don't, YouTube won't tell you. You can also follow my social medias linked down below in the description if you want to see my other stuff on other platforms, but you should especially join my fan Discord, as it's the main hub of my fan base and community, and it's totally free to join. And on top of that, it is the main, I announce all my new uploads and streams there, and I host once a week on Fridays a gaming event, a call-in stream, or a watch party. I do hope to see you there, of course. It's a great time, so don't miss out, you know, join on in there. Link in the description, of course. And finally, of course, if you want to support me directly, and you can afford it and you feel like it, you want to help me keep the lights on, the roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some merch at the Streamlabs link down below. Excuse me. But regardless of how you support this channel, even if you're just a lurker, I really appreciate it. And as always, I hope you have a good one, and I hope to see you again.